It is truly an honor to welcome my next guest, the man, the myth, the legend, Alex Jones.
I'm going to plunge a needle in your arm if you don't take this vaccine.
Well, that's the last time we spoke when Alan Dershowitz shared his totally ridiculous legal opinion about medical fallacies rather than medical facts. But I really want to thank you, Alex. I know you're very busy, and I appreciate you taking the time. Tomorrow's going to be the 19th, I hate to use the word anniversary, but it's almost 2 decades since 9/11. What do you think?
It'll be the 19th remembrance of that giant deep state globalist false flag that was meant to destabilize the Middle East, not to defeat radical Islam, but to actually open the borders of Europe and the world up to the radical Islamic invasion and to make sure that countries that were trying to stabilize themselves were actually destroyed. So it was a crime against moderate Muslims and a crime against the rest of humanity as well. And it's very well documented that it was completely synthetic and fake. Then you just get into the larger question of who exactly was behind it. It was a big consortium of different multinational organizations.
Yeah, not dissimilar perhaps to what we're facing now. I mean, this was one of the most destructive events of our lives. You were one of the very first people out there pointing out the anomalies, trying to get people to dig deeper. And now, 20 years on, you've become probably the biggest name in independent news, and the arrows in your back are there to show that you were the pioneer.
Well, look, I mean, by pioneer, I knew about false flags. I knew that governments and subgroups had staged attacks on the USS Liberty, that Israel and the Joint Chiefs were involved in to get us into a war with Egypt. And we knew about Gulf of Tonkin, again, LBJ again, to get us into the Vietnam War officially, 1964. And we had Operation Northwoods, where, again, the Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to, in the Kennedy era, attack their own military bases and also shoot up U.S. movie theaters to then blame Cuba and the Russians to start a war. And there's many other examples. Himmler launched Operation Himmler at Gleiwitz to start the war with Poland, and then World War II. That came out in the Nuremberg trials. The Nazis had actually staged attacks on their own military bases to launch World War II. And there's hundreds of other admitted, declassified examples of false flags going on. But that day, we all saw Tower 1 and 2 blow up spectacularly. Since when does steel do that? But then in the afternoon, I've been broadcasting all day. I wanted a pizza. So like 4 o'clock, I leave my house studio. I drive up to the pizza place like a mile away, and I'm listening to the CBS radio. They still had that then. And they're going, the decision's been made to control demolition, the Solomon Brothers building. And so by the time I got back with the pizza 30 minutes later, they go, there it is falling. They've demolished it with controlled demolition. Now, back then, things went out once. They were not archived. It took 3 years. Everybody heard it happen. It was on NPR. It was on CBS. It was on CNN. It was on 2 BBC channels. My listeners, I go on air, and I said, oh, my God, did you see it? They said, yeah, we saw them say they blew up the Solomon Brothers building, but then no one had recorded it. And so for years, it was a conspiracy theory. Then CNN and NBC didn't think. And by 2004 or 5, they archived it, and everyone could go download it, and there was all the footage of them saying, we're going to bring down Building 7 with the controlled demolition. So whatever you think about 9/11, that shows we're being lied to, and it shows bombs in the buildings. And again, I mean, they announced it, and then the media spun it because they had firefighters and police on the scene, who I later interviewed. We later found out who they were and had them on, and they were told over the Red Cross radios, not that the Red Cross is involved, but whoever was doing it was using emergency channels, saying, get back from Building 7, we're going to bring it down. And they had a 10-second countdown and blew it up. I had the cops on who were on PBS documentaries saying there's a countdown, they're going to blow it up. They weren't involved. They were just told, but the media spun it. Jones says firefighters and police blew it up. No, they were told it's being blown up by somebody. Get back. And so, again, it's so well documented, because here's the problem. 30 minutes before they blew it up, they put out the message early that they were going to blow it up, and people reported it was blown up before it ever fell. So we had 25 minutes, 30 minutes of buildup, and then we later learned, Reuters admitted they were given a news tip that Building 7 had fallen. 30 minutes before it did, they put it out, and then they said, strange, it did fall. So it's kind of like, it's in the movie JFK, and it turns out it's true. In Indonesia and Australia, they were reporting that Lee Harvey Oswald, hours before he was ever captured, hours before it was in the news, had been the lone gunman to shoot Kennedy. the CIA had gotten the time releases out and they'd gotten the time zones wrong, and that had gotten out early.
Fletcher Prouty has corroborated that, and he's a distinguished member of the military. It's amazing, Alex. I mean, you've been in this game for decades, but everything that you're talking about is documented evidence, tangible video footage that people can see, the times that it came out. You speak about these things very factually, but yet everybody says you and I are conspiracy theorists.
Well, sure. I mean, I talked about Epstein's Island 13, 14 years ago because it was already in the news then. 95% of the time or more, I'm already covering something. I mean, it was in the San Diego newspaper in 1963 that the ship came back, and even the people on board, including officers, said, we weren't attacked, it was staged. But then it became a conspiracy theory that Gulf of Tonkin didn't happen until they released the tapes on the 40th anniversary. I guess that was in 2004. And there was LBJ on the phone with McNamara saying they were going to stage it. So, I mean, it's already all hiding in plain view.
Yeah, but it seems that with each of these events, whether it's the JFK assassination, the Gulf of Tonkin, 9/11, the Vegas shooting, even the pandemic, they get a story out right away, they drill that into people's minds, and then even if you show someone facts like the ones you're talking about, you can't convince people. It's like a programming, it's bizarre.
Well, it's the same thing with COVID. First they said 2.5 million, then 2.2 million, then 1 million within a couple months. And of course it was all lies, but we never go back to the point we were told everybody's going to die, we better do this, or that now they use deaths of people from heart attacks and cancer and car wrecks in the COVID column. It's really 9,000 something deaths on 180,000. But it's just, oh, you don't care about the 9,000 that died? We can never leave our houses again. You know, that's just exactly, it's that first official story that comes out, and then people buy into that.
Yeah, and we've been doing a lot of reporting about a documented resurrection of the 1918 Spanish flu that the NIH conducted in 2005. They tell us in their own papers, there are videos of PhDs presenting this, shows the guy who went to Alaska, dug up dead military officers who had died of Spanish flu, took samples from their lungs. They genetically recreated the most deadly influenza virus ever known. They haven't told us what the scientific purpose of that was, but 2009, we had an influenza outbreak. And March of this year, Deborah Birx announces they're going to no longer announce influenza deaths.
And then, because what they do is they take the influenza deaths and they put them in the COVID column, and it's really out of control. And then you look at Wuhan in 2015, they passed regulations that we couldn't do gain of function, chimera, bat virus, COVID, SARS viruses in the U.S. at Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So they moved the operations there. They're almost all run by Bill and Melinda Gates and Fauci. It's even mainstream news headlines, Newsweek, you name it. And then when it comes out and hits us, we're not even supposed to point out that they're the ones. But then people say, well, is it deadly or isn't it? No, I mean, it's a real virus. It kills people if they are deficient, if they're really old, if they're run down, if they have comorbidities. But it doesn't matter because by it being a chimera, it's patentable and it's owned now by these companies that had already patented COVID-19. It turns out the World Bank reports they were sending out COVID-19 tests in 2018. Reuters reports they found COVID-19 in samples in sewage in March of 2019. So what we know about this again is it's not what we're officially being told.
And frankly, just you and I speaking about it can get me kicked off of YouTube. You've been banned from virtually every platform. There's a risk, frankly, even just speaking to you or about you. Saying the name Alex Jones could potentially get somebody kicked
Well, that's
off the
right. I mean,
internet.
Facebook has said you're only allowed to talk about Alex Jones if it's negative. And now we see hundreds of prominent doctors, scientists. YouTube took down when Trump came out and said, I heard you can put light in the lungs, and Sinai, very respected research hospital, he was talking about that. They went, oh yeah, here's our video about it. They banned their video because it wasn't in line with the UN. So I'm not even claiming I know all the answers about COVID, but I should be able to talk about studies and what doctors said, whether I'm right or wrong. That is the judge of the people. Since when do we have the UN telling us what's acceptable and what isn't? It's very, very dangerous.
Yeah, and I mean, you're speaking about science, the concept of disallowing people from questioning the WHO or any other scientific conclusion is actually the opposite of science. I mean, the scientific
That is the
method,
opposite of the scientific method. Not allowing
Right.
challenging is the opposite of it.
Yeah. So you've been banned from all these platforms, and you are obviously a guy who doesn't give up. You've created banned.video. People can still go to infowars.com and watch you every day. I was looking at a podcast just last night from Joe Rogan. You've appeared on his show many times. He's just made a massive deal with Spotify. It was reported that your interview on the Joe Rogan show, which at the time I think was the most viewed podcast ever, it's not included in the Spotify deal. Any idea why that is?
Yeah, you can argue either that interview or Joe Rogan's interview with Elon Musk, because the one interview with Elon Musk got more views, but then if you count up all the sub videos he put up, my interview has more. But I mean, it's a fun title to have the most viewed podcast ever. And we were online to do that too, before they took us off 2.5 years ago off YouTube. There's been a lot of back and forth. Joe's actually moved to Austin, and I called him a few weeks ago when this broke, and I said, is this true? And he said, well, they're going to leave these other episodes up on YouTube. I've chosen to leave the more controversial ones up there, but he goes, I'm going to have you on soon. He was going to have me on as one of his first guests, but then that became a big national story, so they didn't want to make that about the Spotify launch, about me. And so, I mean, I'm happy to go on a show. He'll be on my show, he says, the next week or two. I mean, literally, his studio is down the road from where I'm at right now. It's just a bizarre world that he ended up coming to Austin, and where people showed him a studio and everything just happens to be a mile from where I'm sitting. And so, yeah, I mean, there was definitely, here's what happened. Spotify said, we want you to review these interviews that have been attacked by the Southern Poverty Law Center and others, and then make the call if you want them up or not. And he said, I'd rather keep stuff on YouTube, which they didn't want. He's arguing for that, to keep promoting it on both places. And then as soon as they kind of caved into that, and as soon as Trump tweeted about me being banned, they did, at least as of yesterday, put my 2 interviews, the newer ones with Joe Rogan, up on Spotify. But yeah, I mean, that's all part of the same censorship. It's just that Joe's not involved in that. As soon as he put pressure on them, they backed off.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad to see that. So how is Austin changing? I mean, we've been hearing in the news that people from California and New York are flooding Texas and other states that aren't having these same kind of draconian lockdowns. Have you noticed any change in the Austin culture?
Yeah, I mean, Austin's the most locked down of any city in Texas because it's become kind of the colon of California. And I don't mean to be gross, but it's like everybody fleeing empties out, and some are cool folks like Joe Rogan, but a lot of them aren't. And so, it's kind of like they say in the movie Scarface, based on a composite of true stories, that, Castro's crapping all over. It's not that Cubans are bad. It's that who Castro was sending over was the criminals. And so California is really emptying out everybody else that emptied out into California wanting to be famous or wanting to be rich. And now that didn't work out, so now they're coming here. And so the crime's up, the scams are up, the homeless are up. There's a lot of cool people moved here as well, but the home prices are up. And I'm looking for another place to move, quite frankly. But my studios are here. People ask, why do you live in Austin? It's so leftist, and this is where my family's been since. We got property here that we bought from the Mexicans in the 1820s, and so that's why I'm in Austin. Is my family's been here. But it's definitely crazy to see people leave a state for one reason and bring their problems with them and not learn from it.
Yeah, right. It's like all the people that I talk to who tell me that if Trump wins in 2020, they're going to move to Canada. It's so presumptuous for somebody to think that another country wants you there, where you're going to bring all of your leftist nonsense to them. So you're going to move. That's interesting. There's a lot of people planning to move out of New York, where I am right now. The city continues to deteriorate. They just announced that they're going to reduce the capacity of indoor dining restaurants to 25%. There's no way any restaurant in New York City is going to be able to stay in business when the maximum amount of business they can do is 1/4 and the rent remains the same.
What do you think the end game? I mean, I think they're going to do that for a while just to train people for social distancing and the social credit score apps that are coming out. But also then when everybody moves out, they'll just take the restrictions off and buy up, all those places for a lot less than they were.
I think that's happening already, Alex. I just noticed the other day, I was on a broadcast with Charles Ortel, walking past a Tesla dealership, and some Chinese people were walking in. Now, that could have just been a coincidence, but a lot of people are speculating that communists like Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio are doing this to drive people out of the city, to drive businesses out of the city, to drive the value down. And this is a standard tactic, just like Operation Phoenix, intimidate business owners and people to leave and then buy up all the property for pennies on the dollar.
Well, that's what the left does too. They've caught Antifa funding blacks to go out and burn down their own neighborhoods. And then the very same Antifa interests come in and buy it all up and then become slumlords. This is a very predatory situation we're facing. And whether it's Nancy Pelosi or whether it's the mayor of New York, they all know exactly what they're doing. It's very, very shameful.
Yeah, and you were out front early on exposing Barack Obama, his connections to Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, the Weather Underground.
The slumlord.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing to me how few people are even aware of the Weather Underground. I mention it, people think it's an app on the iPhone.
They do. And again, that was a communist terrorist organization funded by a lot of the big foundations and protected. And it really is the central cult of the left now and the operating system of all these George Soros district attorneys and state attorney generals and others that they're getting elected. These are really terrible, terrible people. And they've got a plan. Justice for them, not justice for us. And it's a frightening situation because going back to false flags like 9/11, they can use those false flags in those areas to get more power themselves and blame whoever they want. And that really is what they're planning.
Yeah. And it goes even deeper than that because, if we speak about this, it's going to be considered a conspiracy theory. But there are Weather Underground alumni like Susan Greenberg and Judith Clark who have been pardoned by Bill Clinton, have had sentences commuted by Andrew Cuomo. In the case of Susan Greenberg, she now sits on the board of Thousand Currents, which is a nonprofit organization that's raising money for Black Lives Matters. And there's a host of nonprofit organizations that are not properly...
Well, Obama was raised by some weathermen, Bill Ayers and others. I mean, it's the same. And then you've got the son of the Weather Underground's the DA in San Francisco. I mean, it's crazy.
Exactly. Chesa Boudin. I'm glad you brought that up because George Soros and other leftist supporters and organizations have been funding the campaigns of these district attorneys, a political position that a lot of people probably don't pay a lot of attention to most of the time, but it's been a remarkable strategy because now if you control the district attorney, you can bring all kinds of charges against people you don't like Jason Goodman or Alex Jones, and you can acquit or just let out of jail anybody who riots and burns down the neighborhood. It's quite a strategic advantage, isn't it?
It is. I mean, imagine if organized crime, if John Gotti would have spent billions of dollars if he had it, getting district attorneys and state attorney general like Letitia James, who I can tell you is trying to prosecute the whole Trump family. She's doing that publicly, but I know the inside baseball from the Trump family and some others, some of the lawyers. This is full-on harassment, full-on subpoenas for nothing. And they're just going after everybody. Even Stephen Bannon rolled over to them, came out against Trump, and they're going after him for a wall and some charity money he kept. And I'm not even defending that, but compared to the Clintons and their billions and paper play in their foundation and the child trafficking and just all of the, Arab Spring and Acorn and just all of it, it's like conservatives in Congress or in local government, you have a crooked toenail, Tom DeLay. His only problem was fundraising for Republicans and he spent like $7 million in 6-7 years to be found not guilty, but it destroyed him politically. And I can tell you publicly and behind the scenes, I have these very same players trying to get me indicted right now and harassing the living daylights out of my operations. And that's just what they do. And they get away with it. And they're arrogant. And I just wonder why Soros hates America so much. I mean, why he just loves it. He goes to countries and crashes their currencies to make them poor and brags about it and says it was happy making time on 60 Minutes to help Hitler and it was the best time of his life. And it makes me sick. Like, what's his problem?
Yeah. He's a disturbing guy. And, this harassment, this legal harassment, this lawfare against you, that's how you and I first met. You had a press conference in Washington, D.C., and I took great interest in that because there have been lawsuits brought against me. And within these vexatious lawsuits, they try to plant the same type of perjury traps and process crime traps that can get you jammed up.
Exactly. They keep trying to get me in jail during these lawsuits, and I'm not hiding anything.
Yeah. That's what they do, Alex. And, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because Letitia James is the New York State Attorney General, and she is trying to dismantle the NRA. She's going after all kinds of things, but not the Clinton Foundation. And even in your state, Steve Stockman has been in jail. The guy is not well, and he's in a jail where there are multiple inmates who have been diagnosed with COVID-19. He's got diabetes. He also was jammed up on a campaign finance charge that does not, he's not doing anything differently than what any politician in Washington, D.C. does.
Exactly. They take normal activity and say it's illegal, and then they're allowed to do whatever they want, which is the essence of discrimination, the essence of hypocrisy. But, since you mentioned that, I just have to ask myself, what is Trump going to do if he gets reelected? Because we need to go on the offense against these people. They are so entitled. They are so out of control. And it turned out that Epstein's brother still runs an airfield, even the Daily Mail reported on this, that has these young stewardesses and is still doing all this. And Letitia James knows that. And then,
wow.
but let's move on from that. Letitia James ordered those medical facilities to ship people that were asymptomatic but had COVID-19 positive diagnoses and flus and pneumonias into nursing homes with groups not getting sunlight, who are vitamin deficient, to get roughly 44% of the deaths in New York, and on average in other parts of the country about 42%. And now they're hiding the numbers. They think it's even higher. There's a federal criminal investigation by the Justice Department into Letitia James, into Cuomo and others, which is great, but we need to see action on this. They knowingly, when the nursing home said, do not ship COVID-19 people in here, you'll kill them. And they did. That is so cold-blooded. And then here's this monster up here going after the NRA and all the rest of this for nothing, while she cold-bloodedly ordered. I went back down the articles. They ordered in February and March and April those nursing homes to take people with COVID-19, knowing it was a death sentence. When the doctors that headed up the facility said it's a death sentence, they said, you do it or we'll arrest you. And Cuomo signed an executive order, which he's now memory hold off the state website.
And not only that, Alex, I just want to clarify one point. The investigation that the Department of Justice opened on August 26th, requesting data from governors of states that issued COVID-19 orders that may have resulted in the deaths of elderly nursing home residents, is not in fact a criminal investigation. It's a CRIPA investigation, a New York Civil Rights of Institutionalized Persons Act. And even if they find that wrongdoing was present, there are no criminal charges coming from this.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying. I know there's multiple investigations that are civil. I know there's the Justice Department civil letters that have been sent. I've been told that there are criminal investigations going on of Cuomo and some of these other governors.
Well, that would be amazing. What do you think about William Barr? I've been very skeptical of him. I know a lot of people who support President Trump think he's fantastic because he, in their view, shut down the Mueller investigation. Those people don't seem to know about William Barr's involvement in pardoning some of the scoundrels behind Iran-Contra. And here we are on the eve of the we're within the 60-day rule. No charges against the Clintons. No FBI top brass being criminally prosecuted.
No, I agree. We've been hearing forever they're about to arrest him in 2 weeks. And then Barr came out today, I don't know if you saw it, and said, there might still be indictments in the Durham investigation. Well, I'm not going to hold my breath because they've all got dirt on each other, and it's just a big, giant disaster. And that's my concern is I think Barr represents the older establishment that doesn't want a communist revolution and knows that things are out of control. So they just want to stabilize things. But you can't sit there and stabilize things with crazed leftists that are on the communist Chinese payroll. So where do you think this is all going?
It's hard for me to say. I don't have very much confidence in William Barr. I like what you just said. It's a good possibility, but they got to do something. I feel like President Trump has been doing his best, and I support his reelection in 2020. I'll be voting for him. My channel has been attacked. I think I was speaking with David Knight about this, but the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences has issued a strike that's disabled my 115,000 viewer channel until November 18th. And they did it by alleging that I violated their copyright with a parody. This is the way they do it, Alex, right? For me to say it's a conspiracy makes me look ridiculous, but the coincidences are equally ridiculous.
No, it's absolute fraud. Listen, you've got all these channels. You've got Alec Baldwin that parodies the president every Saturday night on Saturday Night Live. We just got, one of my guys has a sub channel on YouTube called Space Force 7. We don't even promote it. It's got almost no subscribers. We're banned everywhere, but it's kind of a fun thing to send around. We play it on our own streams. We get millions a day that tune into that at Infowars.com and Newswars.com and Band.video. But it was Scooby-Doo. And it was a joke video they did where they go, who are these phantoms? And he goes, I bet it's Trump. They pull the mask off. It's Xi Jinping. It's Fauci. It's Bill Gates. It's funny. Our new video today makes a joke of it. YouTube catches InfoWars employee committing a crime. And they said, you've stolen the identity of Scooby-Doo with an impersonation. So now you've got Obama impersonators. You've got Trump impersonators. Now an impersonator. Clearly it's a joke. They're saying that violates their guidelines and gave us a strike. So I didn't know that happened to you as well.
Yeah. It's amazing, these draconian things they've put in place. And, some of the new terms of service that have just arrived recently are so broad, they could shut you down for virtually anything. I heard from, not YouTube, but another social media platform that questioning the World Health Organization is grounds for removal from their platform.
That's the head of YouTube, Wachowski, I forget her name. She's on ABC and CNN clips. You can pull these up. And she says, anything that violates the guidelines of the WHO will be banned. And then I have the head of Google, Sundar Pichai, a few weeks ago, I guess a month ago, in the congressional testimony when they're zooming in. And he says, no, you're not allowed to question the WHO. So the WHO's put out total BS that, it's not airborne. It didn't come out of Wuhan. We didn't know. 2.5 million will die in the U.S. Everything they've said's been a lie. But even if they were right about everything, we have a right to question it. Since when is there prior constraint on what we can do online? And whether it's Melbourne or whether it's Quebec City, they're now arresting people and putting them in secret facilities if they refuse a COVID test or if they refuse to stay at home. This is nothing but a worldwide leftist power grab.
And you've been talking about it for years. I think that's the reason why they've really tried to shut you down there. It's unbelievable. These policies, if you had Galileo alive today and he started a YouTube channel, he'd be banned for questioning the common science.
Well, exactly. If Galileo wanted to say 600 years ago the moon was made of cheese, it should be his right. But he didn't say that. He said that the Earth is not the center of the universe. We orbit the sun. And I guess it was Copernicus before that said, hey, the planets are actually moving, okay? That's all I know. Well, they were right, and they got locked up or got in trouble. And so these people are consciously back in that position, and it's the liberals, the supposed guardians of speech, that are backing China and 3 million Uyghurs in camps and millions of Christians and Buddhists in camps and the Pope says the Chinese government can have its own priest. I mean, this is, I don't care. I'm not a Catholic. Catholics are great people. I'm not anybody. But just imagine if China starts having its own versions of the religion and then the religious leaders say, that's okay. Like franchising it out. That's the opposite of Pope John Paul II. Now the new Pope says, no, communist China can have its own Catholic church with party members that decide who are cardinals. I mean, it's just everything's sold out. Everything's upside down. Everything is this mad corporate rush towards tyranny because the big corporations have gone pure authoritarian.
Well, and they're the only ones that seem to remain in business here in New York. I've got friends who are losing small businesses, restaurants that I like to go to that are gone forever. I mean, the reason for living in New York City is basically gone. You've just got your confinement to a small box and the high expense. I know you're very busy, Alex, so I don't want to take too much more of your time, but
I got time, brother, and I'm sorry I was late. Good to be here.
Oh, no, that's okay. So you see, anytime you come up in conversation or when I've appeared on your show, and this happens to anybody who becomes the big guy in the bar syndrome, let's call it. Somebody in there's got something to prove, wants to go punch that guy in the nose. People always say Alex Jones is this, Alex Jones is that. There have been lawsuits that you've been through where when I see some of these statements that you've made that people incorrectly characterize as backpedaling, I believe that's somebody who's compelled you to do that under the threat of loss of all your money, loss of your organization, possible jail. People say a lot of things about a lot of people without understanding the situation. And I'm not going to ask you to reveal anything that you can't speak about in a lawsuit.
Well, let me say this. I've got plenty of time. I know you've got to get this on the air. I can stay 20 more minutes if you want to answer these questions.
Perfect.
I'd love to have a show, or I'd come on another hour with you sometime just to get into all these things, because all I have is my integrity. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. I was ignorant when Trump won the election, and I was put under a new level of scrutiny, and law firms would reach out and say, you said this 5 years ago or 3 years ago, you really hurt somebody's feelings. All they want you to do is say you're sorry because they're getting harassed. And I'd go, yeah, okay. And then they go, oh my gosh, he admits it's all fake, and then sue me. So it doesn't really even work like that. I had not been at that level of scrutiny. We had a big show and everything. And so I just learned that what these, and I know it sounds like I'm naive, I was, that what these groups and people say, obviously on the surface, is not what they're really doing. So go ahead and ask any questions, I'll answer them.
Well, there was just an article out about this lawsuit, and I was speaking with Jim Fetzer a few weeks ago about this lawsuit related to the school that we can't mention. And they've been hammering you on that, but there's so much evidence that doesn't match what we've been told. Is there any path to a victory in these lawsuits for you?
Well, you notice you hear all these headlines, and I'm losing these all the time. And since you bring up Jim, interesting guy. He wrote a book, Nobody Died at Bleep Bleep. Yeah. And then you can look at Reuters, AP, Wall Street Journal, Market Watch. And it says, Alex Jones loses lawsuit for book, Nobody Died at S. Hook. I won't even say it or they'll attack me. And it's not that I'm scared to say it. It's that they misrepresent what I've said. It's Democrat Party lawyers. So I had a high-powered law firm last year send letters to News Corp that owns that publications and AP, and we said, I was never in that book. I've not interviewed Fetzer on this subject. Why do you say I lost a lawsuit? And they said, go ahead and sue us. Yeah, there it is. Alex Jones loses it for Nobody Died It. Folks, I'm not in the book. I didn't lose that suit. So you talk about fake news. I wake up all the time. Jones believes that there are human slaves on Mars. There's no video, no text, never said it. So you read about Obama 8 years ago changing the law to have CIA engage in domestic propaganda. That was a Foreign Affairs ran it, Public Affairs of the Washington Post ran a story on it. So I've experienced the level of this where routinely they will just say something that I was never involved in. So there are, 5 real lawsuits against me on Sandy Hook.
Wow.
They've never even gotten to discovery because I've fought them in anti-SLAPP for the last 2.5 years because I understand that I'm being put into, a railroading. Okay. I had a custody battle 3 years ago with my ex-wife, and we had psychologists on the stand, everybody, and the judge and everybody clearly saying, that I should get the kids, and then the jury ruled against me. Well, the judge used state law, to do something about that because of what had gone on the record, and I got the kids full time.
Wow.
So, what I'm saying is I have experienced things inside the legal system that give you a real education. Sometimes it's good what happens, sometimes it's bad. But I saw how juries have been manipulated by the media. I mean, here's an example. And I later learned that I was going to win the jury trial, except the other side put up a tweet of someone saying Alex Jones is like David Duke. And then the women and the black guy on the jury all looked at me, and because my name was next to David Duke in a tweet that wasn't even my tweet. I don't like David Duke. He doesn't like me. I lost that jury trial because someone put my name next to David Duke. So that's how dumb some of the general public are and some of these jury pools are. So yeah, everybody has a right. We know Jussie Smollett staged stuff. We know Bubba Wallace staged stuff. We know babies in incubators to get us in the Iraq war weren't being killed. That was a PR firm. There are hundreds of examples of false flags. The internet questioned what happened in New Haven, Connecticut. I questioned it. It was a very small part of what I ever did. Hillary, when she saw that she could embarrass Trump with me, blew it up. This little part of my life made me the Hook man of Connecticut, Captain Hook. And then they get to say outrageous things in my name. Oh, harass families. Oh, do this. And then it's done in my name where I get the blame. And so that's all that is them out there tainting the jury pool, bringing that story back up to hurt the Second Amendment over and over and over again in my name. It's a cheap trick.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the Smith Modernization Act, the CIA being empowered to use propaganda within the United States. We have a mutual acquaintance who is alleged to be a former CIA something or other. And if memory serves, he's the guy who told you that he believed that NASA had children on Mars. That guy went on to sue me. And I can't particularly speak about that lawsuit just yet, but I will have an announcement in a couple of weeks. What you and I have been subjected to, Alex, and you much worse than me, is lawfare, weaponization of the legal system, whether it's civil or criminal. There we go. I thought I lost you for a second. Whether it's civil or criminal, they turn the legal system against you. We can observe it happening to President Trump, first with the Mueller investigation, then the impeachment. It's been happening to you for as long as I've been watching InfoWars, and now it's happening to me.
Well, exactly. Going back to the Sandy H thing, I've been sued by a bunch of people. I never said their name. And then they're crying on TV going, he's attacking me. He won't stop sending people to my house. And so before they sued me, I'm like, I'm not sending people to your house. I agree. I think it happened, because I was thinking, wow, this is bad. I feel sorry for him. And they just keep doing it and doing it. And then you go, well, what is going on here? Because it just never ends. It just never ends. And and then again, they don't want me to be the guy that helped get Trump elected. They don't want me to be the populist that exposed the child kidnapping rings. They don't want us to be the guys that exposed the CFR or Bohemian Grove and a populist Johnny Appleseed type. No. What they want is to control my identity and make me the New Haven, Connecticut guy and forever sit there with my name and then be able to say whatever horrible things they want through me. But here's the good news. When when ABC News said that Trump was blowing up Kurd villages or allowing Turkey to do it, and showed the machine gun shootout at Knob Creek, which was, cans of gasoline blowing up, not 4,000 foot tall mushroom clouds, and just the hundreds of lies, the hundreds of hoaxes, the hundreds of stage deals. Now that all this came out, all of their attacks actually boomeranged on them and actually backfired on them. So I don't know what they're going to do now, not just with me, but with everybody, as no one believes a damn word they say because people know they're liars. No one thinks Trump said, I hate the troops. They're dumb idiots. Yeah. No, everybody knows he's getting us out of these wars and cares about troops. No one's buying that, he's running around saying the N-word. It's not true. And so people just, I don't know what the system does, though, as they're out of bullets. People aren't listening to them anymore. But the answer to your first question, though, I didn't come out and say, okay, I'm sorry about the pizzeria in DC. I don't think there was a basement with kids enslaved in it, because I was being threatened. I didn't come out and say, hey, I think your kids died there in New Haven, because I was being threatened then. People legitimately came to us and said, we're being threatened. People are coming here. You're saying this, which I hadn't said the things they said, but I said, well, let me clear that up. Let me come out and fix that for you. And as soon as I did that, well, we got you. We got you now. And so it was all very dishonorable, because I hadn't been at that level yet where they actually approach you. Like, Irina Baranovich, the big Aleister Crowley lady, kind of the witch to the elites. She reached out, the New York Times wants to meet with me. I'm not stupid. Because As soon as you show them humanity now, as soon as you try to actually have a powwow with them, it's taken as weakness. So I'm damn the torpedo straight at all of these people, and I don't mince words or any of it.
I think you're also describing a tactic that I've observed where they constantly agitate and try to deceive you, even plant people into your organization to give you reports. Or, the example is this guy coming on your show and talking about NASA and children on Mars. That's an obviously idiotic comment that is unfounded and unsupported by any evidence. But by saying it on your show, it's caused huge, mainstream media outlets to attribute the comment to you. And now for years, you're smeared with a comment like that.
Well, that's exactly what goes on. And the media is totally deceptive. And so again, I asked the question, and going back to Pizzagate, we didn't break that it's in the FBI training manuals that they use Italian food stuff as code words. That's real. And in the WikiLeaks, it was John Podesta. We're going to have milk. We're going to have semen. We're going to have blood. We're doing an Aleister Crowley thing. We'll have kids in the hot tub waiting for you. That was all real. And so CNN and the New York Times focused on the pizza place that didn't have a basement. We covered people saying it had this. The media made it about me. And I went, no. The real stuff's in New York and LA and Chicago. Obama was $65,000 worth of hot dogs. That's code word for male prostitutes. No. I never said. They go, well, just say then. And I went, you're right. If I ever misled people that it's about this pizza place, that's a distraction. I apologize. Let's move on to the real stuff. And they went, we got you again. But see, everybody knows the child kidnapping's real. Everybody knows this stuff. So just saying, oh, Jones, the fake story about child trafficking, that only blows up in their face bigger, because just like a mockingbird, if you're ever out in the backyard and this bird lands and it's flapping its wing like it's broken, right there in the bush is its nest. And so we had New York, we had them. We have Tony Podesta in the Washington Post saying, I like, photos of naked children. They're there openly doing all this. And then they make it about a pizza place to distract onto that when it was to cover up what was happening all around it. And so that's why I came out early on when they were all saying I was attributed to the place and I was going to get people killed and I was one behind it. I said, no. Pizza place is a distraction. And if my reporters picked up the CNN, New York Times thing and took the bait, we did take the bait, and I apologize for that.
It's amazing.
Well, they didn't take the full thing I said. They just said, Jones says he made it all up. See how they do?
Yeah. Well, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for one tiny little piece of something that can be taken out of context and shown to someone as just like what Bob Woodward is doing right now to President Trump. I haven't been able to get the book or dive into any of these allegations that he said that he knew it was deadly or whatever it is. But even when you look at the quotes that they've put out in the news, Trump saying, well, it's, more deadly than the flu or whatever it is that he says in a comment there, that doesn't mean that he knows it's going to kill people and he's doing nothing. There's a lot of confusing information surrounding this COVID-19 thing. And they just, as you've just described, they try to seize on one comment, misrepresent it. And now it's become a hashtag, Trump knew, people died, vote blue. I'm seeing this all over the place. It's got to be cool.
Oh, yeah. They had that set up from the beginning to say it was all Trump's fault. You got Cuomo calling it the European virus, the Trump virus. But here's the good news. People aren't buying it. No one knew. At first, we thought it might be bad. Then we thought, okay, it's not that bad. Now we learn if you aren't deficient in basic vitamins and minerals, you're not going to have a problem. That's why it kills old people locked up inside. And black folks, because, black folks need more sun than white people. That's a fact with the vitamin D3. So absolutely. But I talked to Steve Pacheco and a bunch of other big sources. We know they were planning a coup with Mattis and, of course, John McCain and the Democrats. And now Woodward, the only true part of his book, I'm told, is they did plan this coup. And Woodward's like, oh, look how good Mattis is. We need a coup against Trump. So we're down to the point now where they're promoting coups against an elected president. And it's not Alex Jones saying it. It's out in the open. So this is a good thing that's happening. They're out of gas. They're still dangerous. But every passing day, the deep state's in more trouble. Now, we're probably going to trade it out for some new deep state. I'm not naive that, Trump can do wonders. But I think Trump does pragmatically want to make better deals, and he doesn't like being screwed over. And so I think he projects his own identity onto America. And so I think that's why Trump overall is a good thing. But Trump is only as powerful as we are. And so I think as long as we carry forth our own message, and when our message aligns with Trump, promote him as a populist, I think that's the answer. Just like Trump's causing a reformation, a reform movement, a realignment in the Republican Party, we need two parties. We need to have a reformation of the Democratic Party. I would like to see that. The Democratic Party right now, just a client of any, James Bond villainous corporation out there that wants to try to short the U.S. dollar and bankrupt our country.
Yeah, for their own benefit, of course. I'm really very concerned about what will happen after this next election, because it certainly seems in a fair election that Donald Trump will beat the virtually incoherent and, let's face it, mentally challenged Joe Biden.
Well, that's another question. Let me ask you that. Why the hell, they knew he had another stroke 2 years ago. Why did they put him up front?
I don't know. I thought they would use Michelle Obama.
I think he's a placeholder for whoever they want to bring in later.
Wouldn't it just be Kamala Harris, or you think they're going to, before the election, switch him?
I don't know. I just know that I just know that every day he deteriorates further. Like last week, you're like, that's my wife. Her name's whatever. I mean, I've seen family with Alzheimer's. That's it, because they go in and out of gear. Say, what? Where am I? What? Who are you? Oh, you're my grandson. What? There you are. You're my grandson. That's later stage Alzheimer's.
And basically, you know, challenging people to fights and saying things like, are you a dope fiend? I mean, it's so far out. He's got to be the absolutely least capable presidential candidate we've ever
exactly.
had.
I almost got into it with Corn Pop when they get really, you know, last third of the Alzheimer's begins. They start going back when they were teenagers.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing. I mean, next they'll be right on the walls in his own feces.
Yikes. Maybe not in the White House. But the thing that I'm concerned about, Alex, is that when Trump wins, we've already seen the level of violence that they've chosen to engage in before this has even happened. The left, the Democrats, they are the ones who have refused to accept the results of the election here even almost 4 years later. It's a potentially explosive situation.
Well, that's exactly what they've done. Everything is projection. Everything is inversion. They say Trump, for the last 6 months, is going to challenge the results. The military must remove him when he does. Meanwhile, their own strategy, it comes out 3 months ago, is Podesta saying, we're going to contest the election, hold up the economy, trigger riots, have our own inauguration, our own secession of states if we have to. This hasn't happened since, you know, the last Civil War. Again, Democrats again against the Republican president. And so so Trump's done none of that, and they're saying everything they've done is what Trump's going to do. It's very, very explosive and very, very dangerous.
Well, it's also typical of what, you know, the Clintons and their affiliates do. We had retired state senator Dick Black on the show the other day. He's a Vietnam War veteran, and he was a JAG officer. He's been a state senator in Virginia. He's one of the only U.S. diplomats to visit Syria and meet with Bashar Assad. He also spoke about this military coup, and he gave us some real interesting insights into some of the people behind that coup. It's clear that there's a conspiracy of individuals who are working together against Donald Trump, and the true conspiracy theorists are the ones who are winning Emmy Awards, like Rachel Maddow and Jake Tapper, and people who have been talking to us about Russia hacking the DNC, hacking the election, but they've failed to present any evidence. The topics that you and I have been talking about, you present them on InfoWars with copious evidence, but yet...
Well, exactly. It's like the former head of national intelligence, Coates, comes out and says, I felt like Putin probably had something. Well, I feel like, you know, that you've got Lucky Charms elves in your closet behind you. Of course you don't. I mean, you can say give me a break. We've encircled Russia. If anything, Trump's been kicking the hell out of Russia, moving all those weapons in up against their border. I don't even agree with that. China's been all over us. Pelosi admits that China wants Joe Biden. Biden gets all this money. His son gets it from China. Biden says we should have China involved in every aspect of our lives, from our sports teams to our colleges to our schools to our government, telling us what to, I mean, they're Russophobes that are China files, because the globalists set communist China up. They put them in business. They gave them one-sided deals. And they're the middlemen that Trump talked about a month ago at that washing machine factory, where I guess it was Maytag. And he said, look, I don't know how these middlemen make it. They make more money than China makes. China makes most of our drugs. We're getting rid of the middlemen. We're going to bring it back here and cut half the price out. We pay more than anybody. Well, that's true. And Trump's even going, why do the Chinese get less money than the middlemen, and why do we pay more? He's just, this is a bad deal. We have been taken advantage of, and Trump has got that, you know, Scottish side of him, his mom, and you know, a real Scot can turn a piece of coal into a diamond, you know, in their rear end, to be a little gross here. And so with Trump, he literally does not like to be screwed, and he'll give money to people he likes. You know, some black folks helped change his tire once. He paid off their $500,000 mortgage. Nobody knows those stories about Trump. He'll throw money around all day. He's got a big heart. But with other business people and other groups that he thinks are better than him, look at how he went and bought Mar-a-Lago from all those races that wouldn't let blacks or Jews use it. Look how he went and got it when they all said it was bankrupt. How he beat the city over 10 years of fights, millions in lawsuits, and then turned it into a jewel, and then brought black people and Jews in there, completely pissing off all the old, weird, who you talk about, real racist white people. And then now he runs the whole town and beat them all. And so that's Trump. Trump sees, like, he buys old post offices and makes them beautiful hotels again.
Yeah.
He likes to take something old and classic and redo it, and that's what he's doing with America. And if he can turn America around, man, he's George Washington 2.0, and that's who he wants to be. From a self-serving position, it's easy to sell out to the Chinese and be a piece of crap and stumble around like Biden. Trump doesn't want that. He's the maverick that came from nowhere, that ate their lunch, that got in there, that wanted to be, that lie that he didn't think he could be president and he didn't know what to do. It's all lies, every bit of it. Trump had a vision from the time he was 40 years old he'd be president. He's been planning it the whole time. He's pure Americana.
Yeah, and I can tell you, Alex, my whole entire life growing up in New York, Donald Trump was in the news. There's no way that you can be around that long in the public spotlight and be, racist, anti-Semitic, anti-gay. That doesn't fly in New York. And I've been into Trump Tower personally many times. There's a shopping mall, restaurants and stuff. You can ask the guys working the sandwich counter, the guys mopping the floors, whatever minority they might be, to a person, everybody in there has said to me, Donald Trump is a great guy.
He's a great guy until you try to run over him. And I didn't bring up the story about Mar-a-Lago to go, oh, look, he's not racist. He went in, took it over, revamped it, and made it open to everybody. And I'm saying Mar-a-Lago is a microcosm of the whole country and the whole world. Look at how he's getting peace deals in Bosnia and Serbia, peace deals in the Middle East, trying to get peace deals in North Korea. He doesn't think war for no reason is good. And so that's why they're fundamentally pissed, because he wants to undo their whole paradigm.
Well, can you weigh in on this nomination of Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize in contrast to Barack Obama getting it and then bombing everybody?
I was about to say, if Obama got one, Trump deserves 10 of them. I mean, I think the Nobel Prize with Gore getting one and Obama getting one and Henry Kissinger getting one is like kind of getting an Iron Cross from Hitler. But I think it would reverse its tarnished image some if they gave Trump one for actually ending wars, yes.
Yeah, and he's been nominated, so that's a really great thing. He was nominated by a member of Norwegian parliament that Charles Ortel and I met with in January, so hopefully something that we shared with him might have set him down a path to cause that to happen. And
well, you're doing a great job. I see your videos everywhere. Come back on my show. And I just really appreciate all your viewers and listeners. They've blocked ban.video on Twitter, but we have 2020electioncenter.com. That's all the videos with different URLs so folks can share them. And, obviously we're trying to rebuild Infowars.com. It's kind of an old design, but I'm on every day, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have the other shows, and we love it when you come on with David Knight, and we love it when you come on with Owen Schroyer. So I really appreciate the time here with you, brother.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you taking the time, Alex. I know you're very busy, so I look forward to those future appearances. Thanks for everything that you're doing, and I will see you soon. Take care of yourself.
Thank you so much, sir, and God bless and good luck, everybody.
You too. Take care, Alex. Wonderful to see you.
Thank you, sir. Come back anytime you want.
You got it. Alex Jones, everybody. Wonderful appearance right there. I want to thank Alex, and I want to remind our viewers, please become a sponsor. Go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I can't keep the show going without your support and sponsorship, so help me keep bringing great interviews like the one we just had with Alex Jones. I'll see everybody later. Thanks for watching.